All right, people, what are we doing? Let me just, un momento, just press that, and then I'm just going to toggle between this. All right, I take it we is live, huh? We is live, people. إن الحمد لله وكفاه والصلاة والسلام على رسوله المصطفى وعلى عباده الذين ارتضى ومن بهداهم اهتدى وبآثار أهل المدينة اقتفى وبعد فالسلام الله على القوم. أهلا وسهلا بكم ومرحبا. 欢迎来自 bienvenidos a todos, people. بخير راغلي خوش آمدید and swagatam. Right, so alright, people. I'm just sharing this. You see, this is the first time I've kind of set this, like, there it is. Let me just click share. There it is, people. Right. Almost done. Right, so what is going on? Let me just switch this one moment. Look at this. I feel like God, there's a whole navigation room going on. What is going on, people? So those of you, right, just tuning in, right, we've got un momento. Right, so you can post your questions live on Facebook. You can actually post them on YouTube as well. I've managed to integrate the YouTube chat, so I'll put that up shortly. The Facebook one, I'm still figuring out how to integrate them both. There is a way. This is what happens when you're retarded. When it comes to IT and you're trying to learn, you're like a Neanderthal. You're like, this key. That's what it's like, folks. That's what it's like, I'm afraid. Right, so just un momento. Let me just... Right, so... Alright, people. And those of you just tuning in, right, remember to click like, click share, people. Spread the fitan and fasad. You like it, this one. Right, so what is going on, yeah. Right, so I take it, people, I can see there's some of the YouTube comments. I'll take a look, some of the Facebook comments as well. Try and see if I can integrate them whilst I'm talking. But how's it going, people? How's it going? There's quite a bit to discuss today as well. Right now, we'll be taking a look a little later on today at the Al-Masih al-Dajjal, people. The False Messiah Netflix edition. Yes, Halaikor Ashrat Sa'a. This is another sign of the hour. This is that Netflix has produced it. So the Muslims have gone into a frenzy. Some of the Muslims, they go, God, wrong religion. So we'll be chatting a bit about that a little later on. Right, so what's going on? We've got Ali Hussein, who's been Bradford Sharif, Iman Nawaz, wa alaikum assalam. Are you voting this Thursday? Absolutely. And that's something I'd like to speak about as well. Qadi Averroes, alright, Ibn Rushd from Salam from Germany. Allah. And Salam from Bradistan. Right, people, much love. Alright, I'm going to try to integrate this whilst I've people, I feel like some kind of a hacker. Salahiyat koi hai nahi, but still I just feel like a hacker. Alright, you like it people, you like it. I know, don't fight the feeling, this one not nice. So what is going on, mi gente? Let's take a look at some of the only thing is the Facebook. Look at this, trying to help me without me even asking. So that is let me put this on silent, people. It's the last thing I want, Google helping me. Okay. Send to all your contacts. The scandal, the scandal. So I'm just trying to bring up here as well your questions, and I want to discuss a bit about voting after that. So right, people, in fact, I may, obviously you guys can't see, what I behind the scenes here doing, So if I clicked on, I wonder, alright, I can actually see the Facebook comments as well. People, right, so what is going on? Frowdy, Frobbery, Trevosky, Hannah, alright, ahlan wa sahlan bikum, ahlan wa sahlan, marhaban, huanying, right, people. Right, so I can see your comments as well now. That's awesome. Right, because for a moment, Zed Gakar, can I come and play Pac-Man? See, I've got a arcade machine, which is in my Mufti cave, this Mufti cave. So it's to do with that. Well, people, you know what would be really awesome is if I could pop this out. Let me see. No, I'll have to I'll have to learn more about that before I start doing any of that. Right, so let's first of all take a look at voting. Right, so let's have a quick little chat about this, people, because it's obviously bothering some naive folks out there are getting concerned. Concern, the concern. This one, the concern. So what they feel is that that voting is haram potentially. Right, so right now, just one moment. Right, people, the general election is coming up. Yeah. Now right, okay. Right, okay, so right, so what we have to do is we have to take some responsibility and some ownership of the country that we are a part of. So make no mistake, we are British. Now, Britain right now is probably at one of the most volatile crossroads that it's been in for a considerable while in its recent history. These general elections that are coming up will determine things, will have a great impact on things like Brexit, which perhaps not only us, other future generations to come will yet face the brunt of that. Let alone other things, whether it's the NHS, whether all of these things which in the UK are a given, are potentially up for grabs. So I would say it's an obligation really on all people to make sure they participate in the elections, to vote, and I would say to vote Labour, to vote for Jeremy Corbyn, because, look, he may not be perfect, which he definitely isn't. I'm not saying he is. But at least he restores some transparency and realism to politics again. Like he's once again allowed people to have some connection with politics, because politics, people in the UK generally feel that it's all nonsense, it's all garbage, nobody's really kind of cares or does anything. And here you actually see a genuine person, whether a person agrees with all of the sentiments or not. So somebody said voting makes no difference. Voting makes a big difference, people. It makes a big difference. You see, it's that attitude that allows tyranny to proceed. It is the silence of people the inactivity. There's a popular quote that it's been the silence of men, of good men, that has allowed such oppression to pervade. And so for the love of God, don't fall into this defeatist attitude of saying that, look, what difference does it make? It makes a big difference. So, right, so it makes a big difference. So I would definitely say that. So somebody said voting is halal as long as you get paid. All right, I don't know what that means, but yeah, sure. Now, look, it's not even just about, somebody said, look, about, Jeremy Corbyn, he is pro-Palestine. And that's amazing, but that, in all honesty, is not even this is me personally speaking, it's not at the forefront. For us imminently here, it is a duty as citizens of this country to have some say, rather than to sit for years to come, just moaning about the policies, the taxes, the Brexit crisis, the nonsense, just rather than just yapping away, moaning. We've got a chance to do something. So I would say definitely we must do that. Now, I would like to add here that some people who have been kind of promoting that voting is haram. Let's take some of their arguments and just take a quick glance at them. Okay, so you've got what they're going to say, first of all, is that this is not the system designed by Allah. This is one of the first key arguments that people will present, that, this is not, we can't by supporting a part, you're supporting the whole. So tagged onto this at a lower level is people saying things like, Labour or whichever political party you'll vote for, they're all in support of certain things which I disagree with. So some people have sent me questions saying, look, I disagree with homosexuality. I don't like it personally. So this is some people saying this in their questions, and the political parties are all in favor of promoting the well-being and the support and the rights of all of these people, and therefore isn't refraining a better option. So the answer is, first of all, of course it isn't, right? And secondly, I would say about these low-level things like homosexuality, you need to emerge out of your shell. The problem with many Muslims is that we're in echo chambers, tiny echo chambers, and we're just hearing our own voices, and we're thinking, this is the world. Look, people have a right to be homosexual if they want to be homosexual. It doesn't mean you have to become homosexual just because other people are. Some people feel so insecure that, oh my God, if another person's gay, I might become gay. No, mate, that just means you are gay, but you're in the closet. And so when other people do it, it just encourages you to come out. It doesn't mean anything else, right? So I'm just being very clear about it, okay? Right now, okay, so we've got here, right now, so I just want to clear that part up first and foremost, because a lot of people have said this, and you know, in the past, by the way, in the past, when you had, right, so when you had, let's say, certain caliphs, Bani Umayyah, Bani al-Abbas, and many Muslim scholars gave allegiance to them, let's just say in the past, which they did. It didn't mean that they agreed with every single thing that people did. That's never been the purpose. That's never been the point. It's been about a sense of doing something, participation. It's not about 100% symmetry. That's the whole process of politics. Okay, so just to clarify that. Now, there was a very interesting article in some of the papers last week stating that Southeast Asian British people, so basically the Indo-Pak kind of background, ethnicity, Muslims, or not even Muslims, but people within the UK, Brits, may play a decisive role in this coming election in swinging the vote either way. So don't let this, so we shouldn't really think that we are powerless. We're not at all. We are quite powerful in the current climate. So yeah, now coming back to some of the arguments, people say that, oh, we're supposed to be establishing a caliphate. Now, first of all, they will state this. Let me just state what they say. A caliphate is an unanimous obligation. It is a clear-cut, this is what they will say, a clear-cut, and we'll just quickly revisit these in a moment to show how they're all false. But they'll say it's a unanimous, clear-cut obligation that Allah has mandated. Okay, point number one. Two, they will state that there are so many ahadith proving that this isn't, necessary for us to establish. Three, that nobody really ever disagreed with this. Name a single person. People would say, name a single person that ever disagreed with this being an obligation. Right, now, okay, so let's just take a quick look at that. So first, and another thing, that there has always been a caliphate running up until 1924 with Sultan Abdul Hamid II, the Sultan. So these four principles. So first of all, Allah mandates for there to be a caliphate. Now, this is the most absurd, ridiculous claim. In the entire Quran, there is not a single verse, not a single verse, where Allah has said, by the way, people, can you establish a caliphate? Not one. No verse in the entire Quran. So it's not mentioned anywhere, and I don't mean inferences. So they're going to say, oh, but this verse, Allah saying, oh, but He chose you as a better people, so we can extrapolate. No. If it's such a mandatory act, can you tell me that God forgot to say? Is that what you're saying? Is that the first point? So okay, so there isn't a single thing in the Quran, not one. So it couldn't be, so can it really be that important to start off with? It's not even in the entire holy book of the Muslim. It's not even mentioned once, right? Okay. So next point, they say the hadith. It's in the hadith. Now, first of all, there are hadith that speak about khilafah. Now, all of these hadith, people, are made up. Now let me explain to you why they're made up. This term khilafah to mean rulership, to mean that khilafah to mean an empire, was not used in the Arabic language in the time of the Prophet. This is a post-Islam terminology. This is nomenclature. This word, the word did exist in Arabic, so the word meant something that comes after. It did not mean anything to do with rulership. You know, the way people today say it means deputy. This is a later term. So the Arabs before Islam and up until the Prophet's lifetime used words like king, used words like wulat, used words like umara, nuqaba, sadat. They used all these kind of words for rulers. They never used the word a khalifa. They wouldn't know what this word would just mean. It would be like the Prophet using a word that's invented after. Like imagine you had a hadith that the Prophet said, oh, by the way, everybody should learn tajweed. Now, you know, well, okay, well, that hadith can't be authentic because, first of all, the word tajweed, which is an Arabic word, was not being used in the lifetime of the Prophet in that manner. So it's not, right? So it's not being used in the lifetime of the Prophet to mean tajweed. It just means the enhancement of something. That's all it means, right? So in a similar way, you can take terms like, let's say you want to take, there's many words that have developed in the Sharia. They have become principal terms that we as Muslims use them. But in the Prophet's time, although they're Arabic words, they existed with their original linguistic meaning, not in that sense. Okay, so this is important to understand. It's very important to understand. So when you have these hadiths saying, oh, by the way, there will be these khulafa after me, the Sahaba would have asked, what do you mean? What does that mean, khulafa? Because it wasn't a word that they used to use like that. So this goes to show that this is false. Now, by the way, the hadith in Bukhari, there's going to be 12 khulafa after me. Oh, quite conveniently, these are Bani Umayyah, right? The Umayyah dynasty. And the interesting thing is, after the passing of the Prophet, Abu Bakr radiallahu anh, when he's selected, they actually discuss, what shall we call you? They say, what shall we call Abu Bakr? And then they say, I know, let's call him Khalifatul Rasulillah, the person who comes after the messenger. Now, if the Prophet had been teaching for years that there's going to be a Khilafah, there's going to be Khulafat, why do they need to ask, oh, what term shall we come up with? Because the Prophet's already told them the term. So this goes to show there are no authentic hadith. This was simply Bani Umayyah and Bani al-Abbas propaganda. That's all it was, people. They were, and you'll notice that it was these rulers that were really emphatic about using the title to kind of have a legitimacy. In fact, when it reaches Umar radiallahu anhu after Abu Bakr, he doesn't even use Khalifa that much. He uses Amir al-Mu'mineen. And you seem to see this going through Uthman, through Ali. They use Amir al-Mu'mineen. They don't tend to use Khalifa the way the Umayyads started to use it, because they used it to kind of forge a firmer authenticity for themselves. Right, so Amir al-Mu'mineen, so somebody said, why did Umar call himself Amir al-Mu'mineen? It's a good question. The early Muslims didn't seem to call themselves Muslims, by the way. So if you look up early Islamic findings, you'll seldom ever find Muslims referring to themselves generally as Muslims. They had the word Muslim, but they would refer to themselves as believers. Are you a believer? And mu'min means a believer. So the early, in fact, Fred Donner in his book, The Early Believers, he speaks about this whole movement. He says that the early believers movement. So you seem to find all early manuscripts and things like this, that Muslims always refer to themselves as mu'mineen and mu'minun, not as muslimin. And they don't refer to Islam as Islam the way we do. They knew it like this, but they didn't used to refer to it like that. this seems to emerge about 70 years after the Prophet, probably during the time of Abdul Malik ibn Marwan, that he kind of like institutionalizes a certain amount and says, okay, this is clearly called Islam. We are called Muslims. We are. Obviously, he sets, he has a printing. I mean, he mints coins. Sorry, not printing. He mints coins. He puts them on there. He produces certain kind of aristocratic luxuries or features to the Muslim world. So yeah, I hope that makes a bit of sense. So Amir al-Mu'mineen just meant like commander of the faithful. That's all. Right. So Siraj Haq says, Salam Mufti Saab. I've watched you for 2 years but never said hello. Hello. Is it you? Or is it me? What's the old song? Mona Pizza says, Fred cites Muawiyah's coin as evidence for this theory. It's not so much Muawiyah's coin, because Muawiyah seems to use the coins that were already there. It's actually Abdul Malik ibn Marwan who prints some of the first Islamic coins, and he decides to put the Shahada and things like that on there. He's also the person who creates Dome of the Rock. And this is another thing, in all honesty, it's a bitter pill, but the truth is the Dome of the Rock was really Umayyad propaganda to kind of, the whole purpose Abdul Malik ibn Marwan made that was because Abdullah ibn Zubayr was in control of Mecca. And so he didn't want Muslims he didn't want a lot of his people under his kind of command or in the Middle East heading to Mecca because more and more people were joining the ranks of Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Many people had given allegiance to him. So one of the things he did is he created another holy site called Jerusalem. I mean, in Jerusalem, called Qubbat al-Sakhra, and Masjid al-Aqsa and all of this. He's the one who set all of this up. And he's kind of put the inscriptions there. And then this hadith, don't travel except to 3. It's a fabricated hadith. Then the truth is that it emerges in the time of Bani Umayyah to kind of say to people, look, even if you don't go Hajj or Umrah, come here instead. Come to Sham, where Bani Umayyah were ruling. And it's interesting that propaganda really worked so well that even, 1300 plus years later, almost 1400 years later, about 1300 at least, here we are, and we buy it fully, completely. I mean, we're under the spell. So yeah, so I hope that somebody said, isn't the idea of the Mi'raj false? No, the Mi'raj and the Isra were a vision. So there's a difference of opinion amongst people, the early companions. Some felt it was a vision, some felt it was physical. Now, personally, people like Muawiyah radiallahu anhu, Aisha radiallahu anha clearly said it was a vision. The Quranic verse in Surah Al-Isra states it to be a vision. وَمَا جَعَلْنَا الرُّؤْيَا, right? وَمَا جَعَلْنَا الرُّؤْيَا الَّتِي عَرَيْنَاكَ إِلَّا فِتْنَةً لِلنَّاسِ. We didn't make the ru'ya, the vision, except a fitna. Now, the other thing is, okay, some people felt it was a miraculous physical journey. Even if, let's say they're true, let's say we momentarily hold on that argument that it was a physical journey. The thing is that very few people were Muslim at this stage. And Jerusalem does not enter Muslim territory until the time of Umar. So way after the Prophet. Tell me, even if the Prophet went to Jerusalem physically, let's say he went physically or in a vision, he went there, how did anybody know where he went? Like, how do you know? Like, if I say I was in Birmingham, in this city, where was I in the city? How do you know I was in this exact location? Because the Muslims wouldn't have known, because no Muslims were in Jerusalem. I mean, there were no Muslims at all. There were very few Muslims when the Prophet Isra and Mi'raj took place. So if you look up Muslim history, the Muslims didn't know. when Umar radiallahu an enters Jerusalem and they have a truce, it's the Jewish scribes that just say. So they just said, like Ka'ab said, oh, by the way, this is where the Prophet came. Acha, acha, acha. Aapne kaha aur humne maan liya. You know, it's like, acha, acha, acha. Ka'ab is the same guy who was alive in the Prophet's time and didn't embrace Islam. And he embraces it after, in the time of Umar. Acha, 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 acha. You naughty, naughty. This Ka'ab has spread, because of him, there's been so many Israeliyat that have come into Islam. Because Ka'ab ends up becoming one of the teachers of Abu Huraira. And he teaches so much to Abu Huraira. All this Dajjal and all this kind of stuff, which is really, unfortunately, inauthentic, it's made up. It comes really through people like Ka'ab, who's teaching it to Abu Huraira. And then people are learning it from Abu Huraira radiallahu anh. And maybe, and somewhere along the line, people are mixing things up. So, yeah, so that's another, but we're getting distracted. So the caliphate thing, coming back to that, right? So people say not a single scholar disagreed. You think, yaar, I disagree. And they're going to say, yaar, tere disagree hone se kya hota hai? Who the hell are you? And you think, yaar, point. So that's true. Who the hell am I? So in that sense, who has disagreed though? So if we take a look from the classical sources, people, from the classical sources, you will find from the very early, over 1,000 years ago, one of the greatest Sunni Maliki scholars, who was called Shaykh al-Islam in his time. His name is Abu Ja'far Ahmad al-Dawoodi. Now, he was from North Africa. He was a legend in his time, one of the most earliest scholars to write a commentary on Sahih Bukhari. He has a book on Amwal, on the organization and the rulings regarding wealth and money. One of the earliest books on that topic, and a legend in Maliki fiqh. He's a Maliki scholar. Obviously, the Dons are always Maliki. So he very clearly said that this is not an obligation. He said at most you could say this is a sunnah. Sunnah, cha. Empire, sunnah, no. But he said clearly it's not a fard. And he used the hadith to show that when the Prophet had passed, the companions came up with ideas that how do we rule? And some of them said that, how about you have a ruler from, you have somebody in charge from the Muhajirin and somebody in charge from the Ansar. And some people said, how about we have a shura, like a committee? And then some people said, how about we do this? But the point is that they had no direction from the Prophet. If they did, they wouldn't be having this discussion. So why, if the Prophet said, by the way, there must be a caliph, and the Muslims are saying, oh, what should we do? Let's come up with an idea. I know, let's come up with caliph. And you're thinking, cha. Isn't that the same thing in the hadith? But it's your idea now. So, exactly. So this is the point, people. Right, so we do have clear disagreements on within Sunni sources. There's no such thing as consensus. The last point is there's been a continuous caliphate. Where has there been a continuous caliphate? Are kaha? ¿Dónde está? You see, because when you think about it, you ask Muslims, what is the definition of a caliph? What is the definition? So all the books that write about caliph, they say, oh, he's somebody that's so powerful that he has enough power to establish the Sharia and establish this, and he must be from Quraysh, he must be from like the household of the Prophet or from Quraysh, he must be like this, he must be. So, okay, if people wanted to accept Umayyads and Abbasids as truly caliphs, fair enough, whatever you want to call them, kings, caliphs, dynasts. But tell me, as Bani Abbas become, because they're on the rise, then they're going steady, and then there's the massive decline. And this is within a few hundred years of the Prophet. And after that, do they rule? Jack do they rule. It's just for at least 200 to 300 years, the caliph was just somebody that was he was just a puppet. He was just somebody that they kept and the different dynasties ruled. So how did the Ottomans become caliphs? The Ottomans are not even Arabs. They weren't even Quraysh. They didn't have, and they never claimed to be caliphs. They never ever made this claim. And this, up until something like the 18th century, you're not going to find Ottoman caliphs claiming to be khulafa. As a one-off thing, they may have, so they're going to, what people quote as evidence, they get like a long title of some of the sultans, and in there it will say Khalifatul Muslimin. Yes, but read the whole paragraph. In that same paragraph, it says Caesar of Rome and master of the universe, and according to the celestial bodies, he's that leader as well, and he's this leader. But did they generally claim the title caliph? Did they used to be called caliph? Did they say, would people address them as caliph? No, not at all. And they didn't even think that wasn't their thing, because they knew they weren't Arabs. They weren't part of that Arabic thing. So they just went with sultan. That was it. This caliph thing is a later projection, especially by Indian Muslims. So the early Indian Khilafah movement that began seems to project this history back. But if you look at it, because India is under control, obviously under occupation by the British, and if you look at the correspondence that those early Indian Khilafatist movement people had with the Sultan with the Ottoman caliphs, the Ottoman caliphs told them, do not rebel against the British. The British are our allies. Rebel against the French. In fact, Tipu Sultan, when he was fighting the English, what's the name of the actual lord who brings him the letter from the Uthmani caliph, which states that you need to put down your arms, the British are our allies. And Tipu Sultan obviously refuses to follow the instructions. The point being that this Khilafatist thing is just a fantasy. And it's something that people have made up. So, so I hope that's clarified. I tried to cover a lot of things in there. I hope it makes sense. Right, let's move on to some other questions. Right. People are discussing about miracles. वाह 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 यार चाय पीने को मौका नहीं मिलता है. This is the state we're in, people. This is the state. Let me just check. All right, what's going on? Fine. Look at my Mufti YouTube on this. All right, Claire Jones, you're doing it. You're doing it. Somebody said no such thing as a Wahhabi. I don't know what the Facebook Hassan Titta, I don't know what's going on the Facebook thing. People are having their own discussions. I can't seem to tell what's going on, people. What is going on? Right, what's a good idea? Wait there, un momento. Right, here we are. Yep. Right, so let's take a look at some other questions that are coming through. I can, you see, I'm still obviously very new to this whole thing. I've been training and trying to get up to scratch with it. So these are some of the questions, but people are obviously in their own worlds. This one not nice, my friend. This one. Right, so let me I don't want people distracted with their own little me. Abbe yaar, main baitha hua hu. So the attention needs to come this way, this way. Right. In the words of the legend Mir Taqi Mir Sahib, he says, Haal bad guftani nahi mera, तुमने पूछा तो मेहरबानी की. Wow, 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 wow. Mir was a legend, honestly. These people, I tell you, they were legends. What that poem simply means is Halebad, that my messed up condition, this situation is bad. He says, Guftani nahi mera. Guftani is worth expressing or mentioning. That it's not like he can't express it. It's inexpressible, ineffable. Oh, rather, ineffable, people, ineffable. He says, Tumne pucha to meherbani. It's the fact that you asked is from your kindness. Chalo, yani, dil khush kar diya. That's what they're trying to say. The guy's on helium. Yaar, I'm above helium, yaar. Kuch, something that suits my my style. Somebody said, was Ibn Kathir tafsir as popular as it is now? That's actually a very good question. It isn't. It wasn't. I mean, it was known. Tafsir Ibn Kathir is a very childlike tafsir. I mean, as in, it's very baby steps. It's at best, this is like I'm stretching it here. I'm doing Ibn Kathir a little favor here. It's like I'm pushing it into intermediate. Right, it's an intermediate. It's really like a beginner's, like you could be an absolute beginner and read Tafsir Ibn Kathir, and it's just stories and this and it's so simple and it's nothing complex, and there isn't that much to it. It's so, but today people have just kind of like Tafsir Ibn Kathir like it's such a big thing. It's like saying, I don't know, like GCSEs, oh my God, the guy has a GCSE. GCSEs are the secondary school qualifications in the UK. Unless they've changed it now to something else. Have you seen his videos on music? I don't know, whose videos on music? Oh, my videos. Acha, 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 acha. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Promote. This one good. This one I like, So people, let me, humko moka dijiye yaar. There you go. Let me just put this in there as a, there you go, people. Remember to subscribe and like. Boy, I'm liking this. Power. Right, so what else is bothering? Somebody said, what about concubines? Mufti, what is your take on multiple sahih hadith that say music is haram? There is not a single sahih sarih hadith that music is haram. Bas bol diya. There you go. Bring me one single sahih sarih hadith. Just one. It cannot be criticized. Must be clear cut. Maan jayenge. I will break my guitar, which I don't even have. I'll order a guitar and break it in front of you. Agar ek. Hatu burhanakum in kuntum sadiqin. What do you think about the fuss? Sorry. What do you think about the latest fuss about the Somali model who will speak at the RIS 2019? I don't know. I have not heard about this. You need to share the gossip with me. Yeah. Share the. So I'll have to check. Model, he or she, or is it he model or she model or he she? But I don't know why is that a controversy, by the way? Is it just because whoever it is happens to be a model, or? Right, so Harry Rashid is saying, say hello to me, please. Hello, yaar. This bichara, nobody's saying hello to him. Aap yaar, dukhi atma. He's floating around, patakara. He's like, this is the problem with our society. We have no more consideration left for people. Right, so I think Mufti should have a discussion with Hamza. I think that would be awesome. Right, what do you think about prediction hadith? Mufti Abu Alpha al-Yutubi. So the Dome of the Rock has no significance to us. I mean, it has some significance, but if you know, in the sense it's part and parcel of Muslim history, but does it have the sacred significance that we think it has? It doesn't. But it has obviously it has significance. I'm not saying it's a worthless piece of thing. It's obviously very valuable. In fact, it has some of the oldest, it has some of the first inscriptions of the Prophet's name as a messenger that still survive till today on artifacts. So within the Dome of the Rock, if you go to there's the old section, the ambulatory by the dome, where Abdul Malik, and it's obviously Abdul Malik, the caliph who made it, but he wrote Muhammad Rasulullah. Now, because of him writing that, that's the oldest proof we have, where somebody actually put it into a kind of rock or into a wall or something like this. So people who said that, for example, Muhammad didn't exist and he was invented in the Abbasid time, these kind of recent discoveries have obviously disproven that. So it is great value, but is it value in the sense it's a haram, it's a sacred kind of thing? It isn't really. I mean, that was Umayyad propaganda, but chalo, if you want it to be, it doesn't bother me as a person. If it's sacred to you, fine. But it doesn't have any authenticity in Islam as being sacred. Right, so somebody said calisthenics. Calisthenics, is that a name? Right. What about, are you taking questions from YouTube? Ima Nawaz says, what about the third temple? What third temple? See, that's exactly my point. ये तीसरी party कहाँ से आई? You know, there's that, what was that slogan? Was it the Sunni Shia bhai bhai? ये तीसरी party or तीसरी जमात कहाँ से आई? Where did this third group come from? Where did this third Haramain come from? Haramain is the two Haramain, by the way. It means Ain at the end is the dual suffix. So it means like the two Haramain. Why would the Prophet be speaking about Jerusalem in his time when Muslims didn't live anywhere in the Middle East? Muslims were not a part of the Middle East like that. They were in the Arabian Peninsula. Right, so some people are saying they're falling asleep. They're falling asleep. Yeah. What to do? Now what to do? What to do? People, let's take some questions that have been posted on Facebook. And somebody said, can you give me bay'ah? Give me bay'ah, yaar. I should have like a hotline where you call in. And it's like, for bay'ah, press 1. For fatwa, press 2. And then it says, further, for permissibility, press 1. For it's complicated but it's still permissible, press 2. Right, so Calisthenics Wade has asked, Mufti, can you please talk about Ibn Ishaq and his beef with Imam Malik? You see, Ibn Ishaq, people, you know what it is? You see, this is the thing. We're too loyal to certain later people, but we're not loyal to the early people. This is one of our greatest kind of, or the reasons behind our crises. Imam Malik was a Don, people. He was a legend, the Don of Medina. He told us that this Ibn Ishaq is a Dajjal. He didn't mean the Antichrist, obviously. He said that this guy, he is a major deceiver. People like, nah, he's written a book, we wanted book. Acha, ab aram mila. Now you've got his book. Sirah ibn Hisham is made from his book. And Sirah ibn Hisham, he tried to filter still some of the nonsense out, and he still put so much nonsense in Sirah ibn Hisham. Ibn Hisham did. Obviously, he came decades later. The point is, Ibn Ishaq was out of his mind. I'm telling you, look, I'm not saying the guy, he wasn't in his own way talented. I'm sure he was. But the damage he's done to Islam by all these stories that he's come up with, most of them go back to Ibn Ishaq. Most of what you will see today, Islamophobes, ex-Muslims, people who criticize Islam, they're quoting Ibn Ishaq. And what did Imam Malik say? He said, Wallahi, if I was by the Kaaba, I would take an oath by God that this guy is a Dajjal. Yet do we follow Imam Malik? Kahe ko? Why should we follow Imam Malik? He's only from the Salaf. This is the thing, isn't it? वफा की उम्मीद जिन्हें होगी उन्हें होगी, हमें तो देखना है तू बेवफा कहाँ तक है. This is people, the problem. Right, so let's take some right, I'm gonna take some Facebook questions. So I'm gonna try and those that I've posted beforehand. Yaar ye password na nazar aa raha. Have to be the careful. Right, so sorry, I just saw myself laughing and I laughed. See, this ye bhi hunar hum rakhte hain. We have this ability to make ourselves laugh. That's the Munib saying calisthenics is saying he's so excited that I answered it. He's blushing. No hay problema. Right, I just want to take a look at some of the questions that were submitted on the status. So people had posted their questions. I think it's only fair if we answer them. Right, now, so somebody's saying that the Prophet prayed towards Jerusalem. Yeah, now that was really not because Jerusalem had a kind of significance like that. But even if it did, let's just say, I'll answer why the Prophet prayed towards Jerusalem. But even if it did, you're talking about the city. There was no Qibla in Jerusalem. What was the Qibla? All it was in early Islam, people generally, when they prayed towards the Kaaba. But the pagans were doing that. Now, people of the book that would visit Mecca, they would pray to Jerusalem. And the Prophet wanted to differentiate himself from the pagans. So in early Islam, because the pagans, that's what they used to do, so the Prophet started pointing and praying towards Jerusalem like the Jewish people would, just to draw a greater bridge between the early believers and the people of the book, the Jewish, and even though Christians weren't necessarily doing that, but the Jewish people were at the time. And you see there's other parallels. So when the Prophet was in Mecca, you will see people like Abdul Haq al-Ishbili and others bring these hadith that when the Prophet was in Mecca, he changed his hairstyle to how the Jewish people would do it. So they used to do a parting. And before that, the Prophet's hairstyle was he had hair just pushed back. Now, when he moved to Medina and became established, the hadith mentioned he changed his hair back to how it used to be in early Islam, because now the Muslims were stable. So here was just a little example, but what I was trying to show was there's many parallels that in early Islam, the Prophet was doing many things, creating a bond with the people of the book. So even for migration, he sent the early community to Habasha, to the Christians, because they were allies. So there was a lot of this. So praying towards, taking Qibla just means the direction. There was no type of, when I said earlier on there was no Qibla, what I meant, there was no kind of Kaaba. There wasn't a building that they were pointing towards. It was just that because the Jewish people were pointing in that direction, the Prophet chose that direction as well. So I hope that makes sense. But that comes back to, was the Prophet pointing Dome of the Rock? Of course he wasn't pointing to Dome of the Rock. Dome of the Rock did not exist until, decades later the Caliph built it, Abdul Malik. Was the Prophet pointing to Masjid al-Aqsa? Where was Masjid al-Aqsa? What, and out of curiosity, why was Masjid al-Aqsa Jerusalem? Masjid al-Aqsa means the farthest place of worship. Why is the farthest place of worship Jerusalem? Jerusalem wasn't the farthest place. You had above that modern day Lebanon and places like this, the Levant area still had Arabs. You had many of the the Ghassanids and Christians, and all these Arabs still lived there. So why was this the farthest place? And this is why some of the early Muslims, as many of the Shia for example, said that Masjid al-Aqsa meant the place in the heavens, the farthest place of sujood. So this is why many of the Shia don't recognize either Jerusalem as that kind of holy or Masjid al-Aqsa. They say that it's fine, but it's not really the Masjid al-Aqsa of the Quran. That was in the heavens. But yeah, and some of them said it was outside of Mecca as well. But right, let's move on to some questions submitted on Facebook, people. Un momento. I'm just going to put this here as well. Alright. Karna padta hai, boss. Let me just put this here. Right, so the Twelvers make this argument for the mosque in Kufa to be above Al-Aqsa. Yeah, because Al-Aqsa is not really, I know the Shia don't as well, but even in Sunni thought, that if you think about it, when does Masjid al-Aqsa come into the scene? It couldn't have come into the scene in the lifetime of the Prophet, because nobody saw where the Prophet went. Nobody could say, yeah, this was Masjid al-Aqsa, because nobody was there. It was just Ka'b who said it to Umar. And then they just, okay. But even then, Umar, did they turn it into such a holy place? Umar radiallahu anh didn't. But Abdul Malik did. Much later on, he's probably, we're talking about 70 Hijri, that kind of time. So we're talking almost 60 years after the Prophet. So, yeah. Right, people, I'm just taking a look at the Facebook questions. Un momento. Right, can you talk about, right, I've answered that. Can you put up the timestamps? I have put up the timestamps, I thought, but क्या हजरत पैगंबर अलैहिस्सलाम के सारे अजदाद मोमिन थे? Do we feel that the ancestors of the Prophet were always believers? You see, this seems to have become the general view that is taught. So people will say that, look, generally speaking, they will say that the ancestors of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam were all believers. I don't think that was really part of the message of Islam. I don't think the Prophet really came and to kind of pass that as a teaching, and I don't know whether there is any certainty to that statement. It may be plausible that they were, and it may be plausible that some weren't, but I would say either way, because look, if you say the Prophet goes back to Ibrahim alayhi salam, then Ibrahim alayhi salam in the Quran, his own father, does not accept Islam. So, I mean, my point is that what difference does this really make to Islam? Whether, some of the Prophet's ancestors were or were not believers. So I don't think the Prophet ever really would have tried to explain that as part of his message. But I think people kind of took it on board and they kind of went with it, and later on. So to me, it's not really a necessary component to engage with. Khan Khani says, I have a pressing question about what an Islamic calendar I have a pressing question about what an Islamic calendar would look like today and what information we have about where we went wrong. Much appreciated. Khani from Bradford. Right, so you see, I don't think the calendar was really Islamic per se. Like as in, the calendars were not something that, like God said, okay, I'm creating these calendars for you and this is the God-given calendar. I don't think that's true by any capacity. The Arabs already had these months. They were going by them, whether it's Safar, Muharram, Jamadi al-Ula, Jamadi al-Akhirah, these kind of things. They already existed. Islam simply came and just said, well, okay, fast in Ramadan and do Hajj here. And they were doing Hajj anyway in Dhul Hijjah and, Dhul Qa'dah. So it wasn't something that new. In Ramadan, okay, they fasted now. But the calendars, the way they were, we don't have... The Muslim calendar today is not in sync with what would have been the Muslim calendar. Okay, if that makes sense. So the Muslim calendar, gotta stretch my foot and leg. Right, the Muslim calendar back then would have been a luni-solar calendar. So it would have been something that the way the Jewish people have it, that it was a lunar calendar, but it was realigned with the solar kind of scale every so often. So what the Arabs had is they had an extra month, which they either called Qabs or they called it an-Nasi, which is mentioned in the Quran. Now, what happened is the month is added approximately every 3 years. But it's not just every 3 years. If it was that easy, the Muslims would have definitely kept up to date with it. The problem with it was that it's added within a 19-year cycle. So you add it for 3 years, then the next cycle is on the 2 years. So it's on the 3rd year, on the 5th year, then on the 8th year, then on... So it has like 3, 2, 3, 3, 2, 3, something like that. So and in 19 years, it makes a full entire circle. Now, this takes a lot of documentation. It takes a lot of, having a professional kind of scribes that would document the way the Jewish scribes would. And I think Muslims would have done it. But what happened was because after the Prophet had passed, there was a huge kind of discord and chaos that lasted for a good few decades almost. I mean, you had the time of Abu Bakr, there was chaos. And that Abu Bakr's trying to get a grip of the situation. And he does. He passes and then it's Umar. And in Umar's time, there's some stability, but that's 10 years only. And there's all these battles going on and these major empires are collapsing, the Sassanids and the Byzantines, and all this is happening, and there's expansion into, parts of North Africa, and there's this and that's going on. And now so much was going on. And then with Uthman's time, there's all this, these other politics begin and fighting and things like this. So I don't think Muslims, this just kind of went and that ship had kind of sailed. And then some Muslims kind of justified it by saying maybe the Naseet was wrong anyway. And I think maybe either misunderstood the verse or they gave a different light to the verse that an-nasi is kufr. So yeah, so I think the calendars today, if we had the calendar from the time of the Prophet, it would have been always resynced to the solar calendar after a certain amount of years. So yeah, but I don't feel that they were Islamic, like God was sending them. They were just people had come up with them. Somebody saying, can you advise on... Okay, I'll come to that. Can you advise on giving up weed? Okay. Would these rituals usually take place, and how much have we strayed off course? You see, if we went by the calendar that existed back then in that case, Jamad, which was to do with winter, would have been in winter. And Rabi', which means spring, would have been in spring. And the sacred months, the 4 sacred months, would have most likely been those months to do with when the animals in the springtime, when people are kind of sowing seeds and the kind of agriculture is taking place and animals are mating and breeding. So it would have been to not disrupt, because otherwise if there was always constant warring and fighting, then people would be killing animals, destroying crops, doing this. So they had these kind of rules. Whereas later on, it just went kind of like freestyle, and the whole thing just kind of spun freely. Cool. All right, let's take a look at some other questions. Somebody said, a serious question, that when is Christmas this year? we cannot be divided. I agree. Remember Sheikh Asrar? Do you believe Santa Claus is gonna come? Santa Claus is coming to town. Right, so I just want to answer a few of these Facebook questions, because people will be like, what the hell, yaar? ¿Qué está pasando? What's going on? Right, Yasser Qadi. Let's take a look at this question. Somebody asked about compulsion. Right. Yasser Qadi. Sheikh Yasser Qadi. Sahib. Damat barakatuhum al-aliyah. So Sheikh Yasser Qadi has done a talk recently that has been much to the delight of many ex-Muslims and some Islamophobes, where he seems to be kind of, if I listen to, not the entire thing, but I listen to those, that part where he's discussing this about Islam, where he seems to be stating that Islam was spread by force. And he seems to be saying, yes, and it was, and what? Like, I think he might be trying to do a good thing. I think what he's trying to do is provoke critical thought in his audience. But this is what the lecture goes out like. So the lecture was more like, that there was... Right, so the lecture was about, it gets to this point where he says, how do you think Islam was spread? He says, by empire, thank you. And, people embraced Islam because their kings embraced Islam, by and large. This is how he says it. And so I watched a clips about this, a clip about this, a video on YouTube where he's pausing and he's going through this whole kind of speech, and he's encouraging, he's very grateful to Sheikh Yasser Qadi for having made these statements, that Islam, it wasn't really lovey-dovey, it wasn't peace and love and all that hippie stuff. It was really about just spread by the sword. In essence, he said that, I'm not saying, Vidovic said, look, I like Vidovic, I consider him a friend. But he does say, Vidovic says that I'm not saying everybody was forced, but I would assume, or he'd assume, that most people probably were. Now, this seems to echo what Sheikh Yasir Qadhi is saying in his speech, because he's playing the clip. That seems to be what Yasir Qadhi is saying. So what do we think about this? Now, the truth is that is no way the case. It is simply not true. Now, I'm not saying that there was never compulsion. I'm sure there was compulsion in certain places. It would have been wrong, but I'm sure there was. I mean, just like in any other human society, you're going to get good politics, bad politics, you're going to get things. But that was never the case. And I think it's not, the questions that are being asked, like Yasir Qadhi says, oh, the stories they tell you in Sunday school by traders, they embraced Islam. Yeah, right. He says, Malaysia, you think Malaysia embraced by right, so, right, the truth is that, look, people, you've got to understand something. To understand how people in the past embraced religion, you have to try to take yourself out of your mind frame and view into the minds of other people. Now, what you're doing is you're placing your mind, 21st century mind, in people back then. Now, you might think, well, actually, 21st century is much more liberal. It is much more liberal. However, 21st century is also much more insecure on several other things. So, you see, especially on identity. Identity today and in our recent past has become a huge salient feature of Homo sapiens. Like how we identify ourselves. I belong to this country. I am British, for example. I am Pakistani. I am this. I am that. I'm Egyptian, or I'm Saudi, or these things did not even exist. People in the past wouldn't define themselves like that. Not as an identity. I mean, as a description, yeah, they would say, yes, I'm from southern Egypt, for example, or I'm from this part of the world. But it wasn't like a kind of integral part of the identity makeup the way it is today. And religion, you see, you have to understand, was a similar thing for huge parts of the world. You see, people in the past were much more open to the concept of new gods. You've got too many blinkers on if you think otherwise. Take a look at the empires, take a look at the Roman empires. Every Roman empire, every time they took over something, they incorporated the gods into their pantheon. So all the Greek gods are kind of subsumed by the Roman culture. When the Romans went into, when they've gone into the Middle East, they've subsumed their gods. And it's because, in fact, when they've taken over the temple at Jerusalem, this was, the emperor, this was the thing. He couldn't make any sense of it. He was like, but where's the God? He's like, this is the temple, but there's nothing here. So he was actually so bewildered that what are they worshipping? So people in the past were always looking for gods of new because they felt that the new gods might bring better luck to them. So if you watch things like, for example, the Vikings or things like that, they were always intrigued that, hey, so even in the TV series, they highlight that, when they come across England, and one of the Vikings is telling the other Vikings, this is what he says. He says they have new gods. They have a different God. And their God does this and and people were intrigued by that in the past. You see, today, because our narrative has come off religion, and religion is simply an identitarian issue now. We don't think in that way. Therefore, we find it strange that people would think like that. But in the past, they actually did think like that. So people were quite welcoming for other gods if they felt it would bring them good luck. And it would kind of, like, they think, oh wow, maybe this will bring prosperity to us. Take a look at places like India. India, I mean, Hinduism isn't, I mean, this is just a term given to it by the British. But it was actually just so many different people and regions just worshipping different things. These people worshipping Shiva, worshipping Durga, worshipping, Ram, worshipping whatever you want. Some people even worship Ravan, the devil. I mean, if I can call him that, in the anti-hero from the Ramayana. Now, how did this happen? Because people felt it worked for them. Another feature that you have to throw in is that because of where the Middle East was placed, it was bang in the middle of the Silk Roads. Now, all trade throughout the world, whether you want to bring it down from China into Africa, down from China into Europe, from Europe into China, from Europe into Africa, you had to go through the Middle East. And because the Muslims generally controlled that, it gave Muslims a huge power play. Hence, Arabic was the lingua franca. Arabic was the lingua franca of the world. People saw Arabic in a great sense of prestige. They didn't see it like you see Arabic the way we see English today. So people today will pride themselves to say one or two words in English in some countries, even if they can't speak English well, because it's a language. It's the language of currency. It's the language of power. In a similar way, Arabic was the lingua franca back then. And I'm not saying this. This is documented fact. So when you see a prosperous nation that are powerful, that have strength, that have military, they have might, they have their version of technology, they have wealth, they have the lingua franca, and these people have a new god. You see, to people back then who were really into omens, they were intrigued by new gods and the fact that maybe this god will bring good omen onto us. So it's not, this is nonsense that people were all forced to become Muslim and then they had to stay Muslim. I mean, who was monitoring their Islam? Why would they make their children Muslim? Like, think about it. If the dynasty afterwards had collapsed, why would and who's going to be checking in the farmlands? And the majority of civilization was rural, was in the countrysides. So who was going to be policing all of this? So this is nonsense. This is like just, it's either propaganda against, religions, or it's just bigoted views, or it's the inability. If it is genuine, it's the inability to fathom what the minds of people in the past thought like. So people are thinking, today I wouldn't, because today it's true, people won't just take on other religions. So we're assuming that in the past. But a good way to look at it today, in some ways, is like saying, like how people will maybe take on lifestyle approaches today. Like they'll change their lifestyle to match a particular lifestyle. Like, I know, like, it's the new year, I'm going to go onto this lifestyle, become healthy, I'm going to do this, I'm going to go gym, I'm going to become a vegan, I'm going to adopt this lifestyle, I'm going to get into this particular, environmental kind of lifestyle and get into this. And people do still adopt that today. It's not a strong parallel, but I'm just giving an example. But in the past, people were very eager to adopt something that would bring them good omens. So yeah. So I hope that makes sense. It was never that this is nonsense, utter nonsense. I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying nobody was ever converted by force. I'm sure they were, and I'm sure there were many. If you're going to look over entire history of human civilizations. But that was never the norm. of how it was happening. That was never the majority. That was not how Islam was spreading, because somebody was going around saying, oh, you better accept Islam, otherwise I'll chop your head off. And what? People were accepting it. And they were becoming Muslim as well. And how many people were policing, and how long did these empires last? Because within the empires, their rulers keep getting taken over every 5 years. So, yeah, so I hope that makes some sense. I definitely wanted to kind of shed some light on that. Right, so let's take a look at some other... I wanted to also discuss this Messiah thing, people. Shall we... What say you? Shall we take a look at this Messiah thing that's caused... Yasser Qadi question, I've answered that. Did I see the live about Muhammad Hijab and Christian Prince? Okay, I'll come back to that. Shall we do that as the Mufti Masala segment? We'll do that as the Mufti Masala. Right, so Michael DeSanta asks, Mufti, what is your opinion on mass farming, bad living conditions, and halal meat in the UK? According to the RSPCA website, most halal meat is pre-stunned. However, none of the kosher meat is. Does this make kosher more halal than halal meat? You see, about the stunning and things like that, I'm not so sure. But generally, I know that the way animals are kept is notorious. It is utterly unacceptable. It is all too easy, and I'm guilty of this, to just turn a blind eye and not be that fussed about it. And, just unfortunately, because, we don't really see it, out of sight, out of mind. But that said, the kind of battery farms that have been created on such industrialized scales are, they are so tyrannical. It's shocking. If you do watch some of the things, it's the way they will have, for example, certain animals trapped, let's say the female animals just trapped in cages, constantly just breeding. So once they've kind of had, let's say they've had some young, they've had some infants, the infants will be taken away more or less immediately, and they will be put onto just constant bright lights and just being fed until they can get fat and plump and just be kind of processed. And the mother would just be breeded immediately after. No breaks, no bond, no emotional connection between these creatures. You can imagine the kind of instability. The battery chickens, if you see some of the documentaries on that, it's ridiculous. They just put these lights and keep feeding them because the chickens just don't know when to stop feeding. And they'll just keep eating. They'll become so plump. What would take a normal chicken something like 10 months to grow to, 9 months, it will take a chicken perhaps maybe 6 weeks to get to that size, and they just churn them out, move along. That's so I feel that, it's a nightmare. But that said, somebody said become vegan. I won't lie to you. As Ghalib the legend said, Sadiq hu apne qawl mein, Ghalib khuda gawah. Sach kehta hu ke jhoot ki aadat nahi mujhe. I love meat. There's nothing. I love things like steaks. I love chicken burgers. I love beef burger. You see, this is the problem. This one tastes too nice, this one, and plus it's protein, it's like, ugh. I've been actually trimming down recently. The past 6-7 weeks I've been on like a mega regime, kind of trimmed down, lost loads of weight, and then I've thought what I'm going to do is in the next starting maybe the end of this week, I'm going to start back now, hitting the gym on, and then start building back up some of the muscle. I thought, all right. So as you can see, this is see, look, it's proper trimmed down, people. And it's this one Es muy necesario. Has to be done every now and then. But I agree the factory farms are disgusting, and I think there should be legislation. But I don't know. I know it's hypocrisy. I admit that. But I mean, if it was happening in front of me, I wouldn't be able to do it. I wouldn't even be able to sacrifice an animal or slaughter an animal. I don't think I'd be able to do it. I saw it in Pakistan on several times when I used to study. But I saw, some of the times up close, and I felt so sorry, honestly. I was like, no way. I don't know how, but it's amazing how it's a natural part of life. That said, I will accept, that, look, I'm being a hypocrite because I'm happy to eat the meat, which I am. I mean, lamb biryani tastes awesome. Why lie? But yeah, it's like the legend of Muslim Spain, Qadi Abu Bakr ibn Arabi. Legend, people, from about 900 years ago. In fact, this dark green book is a commentary by him called Al-Masalik on the Muwatta of Imam Malik. So he writes, and he was a legend, right? Abu Bakr ibn Arabi, right, from Muslim Spain. Now, he was the judge of Seville, right, Ishbiliya. Now, he writes in his commentary on Tirmidhi, which is further up there, you can't see it, right? So he writes in that he disagrees with a particular ruling, and he kind of emphasizes that, if I caught a person who says that, I'll be like, strangling. But he begins by saying that I've never slaughtered or sacrificed even a chicken in my own life. Like he just felt that he couldn't do it. But I can totally agree. I can feel what he's saying. But yeah, you see, according to the Maliki school of law, almost everything is permissible to eat apart from pig and dead animals that are already dead, or sacrificed for other gods, which in this day and age very few are. But you see, so there's like all birds of the air, all winged birds of flight. They are all halal according to the Maliki school. Everything in the sea is halal. Amphibians are halal. Crocodiles, everything is halal. Predatory beasts are only makruh. They're not haram. There's nothing pig is haram. That's the only thing because it's mentioned in the Quran. And animals that have been sacrificed for other gods, etc. That's it. So I remember I went and had a crocodile burger a few years back. I was like, oh my god, I gotta eat. I'm so like curious. I want to taste. I'd love to. I heard once some country had like an exotic buffet. I think it was Thailand or somewhere. And I was thinking, damn, if it happened now, I'd probably fly out there. They had like, this is going to be so crazy, so don't quote me on this, but they had like tiger meat and lion meat and you name it, they had everything there. Just for the taste, like I wonder what it tastes like. Yeah, curiosity. After all, God's given it to us. We got right. So yeah. Right. So okay, let's take a look at what was I? Did you ever try deer meat? Yep. The actual term for what's the actual term? The actual but yes, I have in steak. It's quite nice. What's the actual term? But it'll come to me, or maybe somebody will write it for deer meat. Right. So yeah. Okay, guys, people. Let's take a look. Let's move on to this question of. Right, Muhammad Ahmad is saying, Mufti, please answer my question. Right, so Imam, venison, va, and ziryab. Ziryab, what a name. Right, so, yep. Look at the exquisite people online today. Imam, venison, wow. Right, so, yep, definitely. everything tastes like chicken. I think it doesn't, it tastes a bit different. Like, if you think about it, beef doesn't taste like chicken, lamb doesn't taste like chicken, turkey even doesn't taste like chicken. So I don't think it's true, but I do think chicken probably is one of the best tasting meats. I think so. Maybe not as succulent as some of the others, but I see, like steak, I like it raw, rare, people, rare, with a bit of the blood in there. Right, that's it, man. Rare blue, people, that's it. Right. Handsome Hound said, Mufti, what if our girlfriend volunteers to become concubine? Then is it allowed? Our girlfriend. यहाँ पे कोई joint account चल रहा है क्या? Our, cha mushtaraka. यहाँ पे it's is this a collaborative effort? Is it a collab? Right, people. So, what do we think about this? Oh, right. Sorry, somebody had asked a question, Muhammad Ahmed, about the khatams. He said, "Please, will you answer?" And I got distracted because by the meat question. Right, these khatams and things like this are just part of really folk tradition. It's folk religion. I mean, it's not authentic in Islam, but if people do it, it's because you can't change the world. Sometimes you do more harm in trying to change something, because when you oppose something so much, it creates so much of a rift. It's like what the Ahl al-Hadith and the Salafis did in India, Pakistan, by, being so staunch and stamping down. See, India was like it's like a colourful 4K quality in colour of a reality. Like, things were so, and they tried to impose a super stark black and white reality on that. And although it worked for some people, but it created chaos and resentment. And so I would say, look, if a person wants help on it, then that's good. But if they don't, I would probably just leave them to it. I wouldn't really create too much of a hoo-ha. Right, so what was I about to... Right, so what do we think about this... Guys, what do we think about this Messiah thing? There's been a... right, just one moment. Right, there's been a documentary... a Netflix series that is... the trailer has been aired about the Masih ad-Dajjal. He's actually called the Masih ad-Dajjal. So people are like, what the hell? They're kind of really freaking out, yeah? But, and some Muslims are like, what the hell? This can't be, this one not nice. And, let me see, what is this? No. Sorry, I was just trying to get so what some people have felt is that, look, this, oh my God, they're not only taking this from Islam, but they are, they're kind of using this to, I don't know, promote the Dajjal or do something like this. And I just feel that, look, just relax, just calm. Tranquilo, that's all I'm saying. I just feel that, look, it's, people are so, they become so reactionary. Right, let's see if I can create this. Un momento.
At Lidl, we're big on Christmas, you can believe.
Right, so I'm gonna see if we can get this up in front of us, people.
Sleighing, jingling all the way. Big on award-winning,
sparkling
love actually being in the air. Big on all your dreams
coming true and
believing in the Christmas spirit.
Let's see. So this is the ad, folks. If we can, I mean, let the ad kind of complete.
Now that's
If we
big on
can.
quality and always little on price.
He's come out of nowhere and we don't know who he is.
This is
What
it.
do we know about him? He's leading desperate people. So this is a cult? We don't know who he's associated with. He could be creating an army.
I like this. You know, we could watch movies together. Actually.
What are you going to say? You need to read this. Message from my father. And where's your father?
We've lost him.
What do you mean?
He just disappears.
No one just disappeared.
What?
We all witnessed a miracle.
So people are really.
You need to see this.
Right for as long as you can. He didn't just click his heels and end up here. He clearly had help. You get around. Syria, Israel, ISIS.
Can you show me?
And what is that word?
Gospel.
Oh, the Messiah.
You didn't see what I saw.
And if I did, would I be calling in the second coming?
How far will this new movement spread?
I'm going to find out everything about you.
Ooh, false god.
Bigger than what you can imagine.
Right, so people, that is that. What we've got there was the trailer. Yeah, so just one moment. Now, see, people have really freaked out, saying, "Oh my God, what is Right, so people have freaked out, saying that what Netflix is doing is it's it's meddling with religion, it's taking this from Islam, and it's doing this promoting the Dajjal's work. So people have started taking, on Twitter, they've taken to to Netflix and try and take them to account, and what the hell, and somebody had said, and people are posting Surah Al-Kahf, like the first 10 ayat, because there's a hadith about it being protection from the Dajjal. They're posting that. Yeah, drama kuch zyada nahi ho jata hai. It's like, one, this is already a drama. It's dramatic. Then Muslims have to do more drama. And one person, I saw one particular tweet where somebody said, oh my God, that included Netflix and whatever, added them, the handle, and it said like, oh my God, no, it said, the person said, I fear for my iman, yeah, I fear for my faith, added Allah, at Allah, like the handle, he added Allah and said, please save me. He's adding Allah on Twitter, and what if there was a response? Oh my God, man! This, you couldn't make some of this stuff up. It's so ridiculous. People are like, let's tweet to Allah. It's like, tag a line to this. Acha. People, man, these are the kind of taqwa attacks here that people have sometimes, and I don't think they realize how embarrassing it is for the people to see You know what? It's unfair, as I say, that we have it's disproportionate. The system is rigged against us. We have like a disproportionate share of, you know, like of the special needs in this ummah. Unfortunately, that's you know what I call the sunshine group. The ones who just crayons and coloring. Oh, this one. Oh, algebra. Oh, coloring. This is the sunshine group that we have. So, yeah. So that was. I wanted. So people ask me, what do I think about this Messiah thing? It looks okay. It doesn't look. I'm well into watching TV series, and I've clocked so many. I'm always looking for new TV series. I may watch this, I don't know. It looks okay. It doesn't, you know, interest me that much, but there's no need for concern. You don't need to freak out. There's no attack on Islam, people. Relax. You know, Dajjal kya chacha lagta hai tumhara? You know, it's like, why are you so insulted that the person is playing the Dajjal? It's not like the Dajjal, you know. Frank the Ant said it would be hilarious if God had a Twitter account. Yeah. And then he trolled people. And Twitter tried to ban him. People would be like, removed for 24 hours, right? Temporary ban, right? So this, right? So yeah. So I mean, I think, look, guys, there's nothing to be afraid about. Relax. I've already said there's no such thing as the actual Antichrist. It's not this is something that we as Muslims kind of inherited from the Christian culture. You can watch, I've got a detailed video on YouTube, people. So when you do get a chance, just un momento. So when you do get a chance, people, do like, share. Exactly. Obviously, I'm going to tell you to like. I can't do it on my own. Right, so do subscribe to my channel. But I've got a video there called Prelude to Why There Is No Second Coming in Islam. Just to be clear here, we're talking about the second coming of Jesus. It's not it's the dirty minds that the people, you know, these people. This is naughty. Trust me, the people that it's not me, it's the world out there that's corrupt. Believe me. Trust me. Right, so yeah, so I mean, and I've got detailed videos on the miracles as well. I know somebody's asking, have you watched any of my clips? They're on you know, I've got detailed, elaborate videos explaining about miracles as well. But speaking about this, I've got several segments, clips on YouTube where I explain why there is no second coming of Jesus. Okay, we don't need to freak out, people. There is no Antichrist. I explained that and how this was picked up from Christian doctrine, and then it was kind of imported into Islamic heritage, and then it became the mainstream view, surprisingly. But I go through that in much detail there. So, but even if you do believe in the Dajjal, even if you do, obviously, I've said that regarding the hadith about the Dajjal. Now, the Dajjal is not mentioned in the Quran, but the hadith about him are of three kinds. One is about the Antichrist as a person. That I feel are all false. They're not true. They seem to be Christian, like smuggled goods from Christianity and other faiths. The second aspect is that Dajjal in Arabic simply means the imposter, the deceiver, which is also a term used for the devil. So in some of the hadith, the hadith may have been legitimate, but it may have been speaking about the devil. So when, you know, seeking refuge from the Dajjal, did the Dajjal there mean the Antichrist, or did it mean the devil? So in that sense, they may be accurate and speaking about the devil. And the third kind is you'd have the third kind. I feel if some of the hadith which said that, you know, that the Prophet said, I fear a time where of this great fitna of the Dajjal, of the great deception. Now, that did not mean, in my understanding, the Antichrist, but it meant that there will be an era in which there will be a great deception. And I've said that, I've interpreted that to mean like an era in which the lines between reality and virtual reality become blurred. A bit like what we're embarking on now, when the virtual world starts to become more and more reified and real than our actual world. So I feel that, yeah, in that sense, it could have some validity to it. But okay, right, so I hope that makes some sense. But regarding this series, or series it is, yeah, there's nothing to freak out. We don't need to start posting Quran verses on there. Somehow this is going to prevent even if you do believe in the Dajjal as an actual person, posting, you know, verses of Surah Al-Kahf on Twitter is not going to prevent him. You know, it's not like, you know, I would have come, and the Dajjal's like, you know, I had all this great plan, and I was going to go and I was going to take over the world, and then he went and posted an ayah from Surah Kahf on Twitter, and now I call, Blessed are the naive. You know, it's amazing sometimes how, I wonder how the world must look from their perspective. Life must be in some ways it must be enviably content. Crayon, color. Oh, oh, this one. Oh, yeah, this one. Oh, this one. I wrote on here once. I got these. My daughter Zara. She had these little fridge magnets with letters. So you've you know, spell out whatever to help her spelling words, whatever. So I made a video where I put the K, F, and the C over here, like from and it was just obviously satire, and people were like, oh my God, he's mocking the Dajjal, oh my God, he's mocking the Dajjal, and they had this kind of like a fit. And they became so offended, and I was like, I'm sorry, is the Dajjal your dad? I mean, kuch zyada rishtedari rakhe hain ka? It's like, why are you so offended? Like, who is he to you? If I'm mocking him, why are you so offended? See, this is the thing. This is the irony. And I say that, look, people, the things they should be offended about, like when people, these wrong and inaccurate teachings that the Prophet married a child, or these kind of forced marriages or rape allegations that Islamophobes put on the Prophet, or they put on Islam, and they say that, oh, the Prophet did this, or the Prophet became, you know, he became he became incompetent and also impotent because somebody did a magic spell on him, and these things we should be offended by as Muslims. We should be like, what the hell? What are you on about? That's not the Prophet of Islam. Of course that didn't happen. The Prophet forgot the Quran, he forgot parts of the Quran and all this. And I've got videos on this where I speak about my Bukhari gate. If you check out on YouTube, my Bukhari gate. Right, so there we don't get offended. We're like, oh no, okay, fine, it may have happened. It's like I got into, there was some guy, I share a clip, it was one of my, where I refute these Wahhabis once, it's called Reply to Wahhabi Defense or something, where they were critiquing me, and they said, well, Mufti Abu Layth says, I think they used to say Abu Layth. You know when they don't like me, they never say Mufti. You see, authority, authority. As I say to people, you see, Akhir, I am a Mufti. Ab kaha kare, I don't have a hierarchy, people. I am the hierarchy. See, because of the rank. So people are like, so they go, Abu Layth says that, the Prophet, that these people who believe that magic happened to the Prophet, the narrations say things like, in the book say, he became sexually impotent and he had like false sexual memories and fantasies and all this. And then they go on to say, yeah, but so what? That's actually, so what if the Prophet was impotent? And you think, are you for real? How can you be disrespecting the Prophet as a Muslim like that? So what the hell is wrong with you? I mean, why are you so buying? Just because somebody wrote in a book and you, just to favor that person, you're throwing the Prophet under the bus. So people don't get offended on things like where they meant to. And they get offended on things like, oh my God, he's satirizing the Dajjal. The goddamn Antichrist. That's where their loyalties lie. That's the... Or in the words of John Elia, Hazrat John Elia, मैंने ये कब कहा था कि मोहब्बत में है नजात? That when did I say that love will bring salvation? मैंने ये कब कहा था कि वफादार ही रहो? Says, when did I ask you to stay loyal? That's the thing. Right, so people, let's take a look at, I'm just bringing this back here. So, right, this thing about a bit of the Mufti Masala segment, and then let's wrap this up. So, I did see a clip. Somebody sent about, and some kind of social media posts, but of Muhammad Hijab in dialogue with this person called Christian Prince. Now, and then I think there's another person as well who Muhammad Hijab had, who is like an Islamophobe, and I think Muhammad Hijab is calling him out to an MMA match, and I think the guy's accepted. So what are my thoughts? So Mufti Masala segment, people. So Masala segment. Okay, I have to get a kind of profile thing made for that, but chalo, up until then. Right, so first of all, the audio clip that's on, I think there's some video to it as well, that's on YouTube by Christian Prince, where he is he's called into Ali Dawah and Muhammad Hijab. I think they made a kind of Twitter post or social media post, I don't know, saying that Christian Prince has 24 hours to contact us, or we're going to be live. I think they said we're going to be live during this time. He can call in, and he does call in, and he records it. Now, this Christian Prince, he's basically somebody that he's just a very emotional, stubborn, argumentative Christian. That's all he is. And he's obviously, taking the mick out of things, which, people would say, well, Mufti, you take the mick out of things as well. So fine. I mean, I've got nothing against people satirizing or trying to be funny or trying to do things. But so he calls into their show, and then he says, look, and I think he makes some kind of point about, you said that you're going to speak to me, but you never said the word inshallah. Answer this. And then he wouldn't let the guy, Muhammad Hijab or these people really move on the discussion. He'd just say, no, answer this. And you potato, answer this, you potato. No. So tell me. And then he starts speaking about, why did, this. And I've got a segment on YouTube where I explain, and it is in my Bukhari Gate and it is in other things as well, that this hadith about did the Prophet say that women should that if they wanted to create a sense of relativeness like not relativeness in that sense, but like they wanted to become related in a way that they don't need to do hijab in front of you, that you would drink their breast milk. And I've explained that this is nonsense. Yeah, and the scholars never accepted that as a ruling anyway. And the hadith has problems, and I've mentioned that in a separate clip. So this guy's Christian Prince, he says, oh, so why your prophet, he say to women to give their boobs to grown men? Why you potato? Why you potato? And he non-stop just goes on like this. And it's just like raising voices, and then he quote certain things. And to be fair, if you listen to that video without paying too much attention to the content, it seems that Christian Prince seems to get an upper hand. Why? Because he seems to still be kind of laughing and seems to have kept his cool. And Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawah, like they start shouting in the background. Like you can't hear sometimes what they're saying, but they're shouting. Like you can hear why are you saying this? Why? And he's like, but tell me, why your prophet say this, you potato? Tell me, you potato. Then it's like, so they are like obviously getting all kind of worked up. So it seems very like if you're not paying attention, it just seems that if you visited that and didn't know anything about it, you'd probably think that what's wrong with those people? Why are they so reactionary? So I think he kind of succeeded in what he wanted to do, Christian Prince. Personally, I've said that, look, when it comes to religion, I'm more than happy to discuss with people that are making intelligent arguments, because really the arguments against Islam that confuse people sometimes and that many people have questions about are not things like, people don't go and watch Christian Prince and then start doubting Islam. Generally speaking, I'm not saying nobody, but generally speaking, that doesn't happen. But yes, they will listen to intelligent people, Sam Harris. They will listen to Richard Dawkins. They will listen to intelligent people and have meaningful questions that make them then have a kind of dissonance with Islam. So those things I'm always happy to tackle. With people like this who just want to, who are just I think he's an Arab or something, Christian Prince. He is an Arab. I don't know what country he's from, but he's an Arab. They're just a Christian version of like a desi stubborn mullah that doesn't, you're just going to argue, it doesn't matter what you say. So my first piece of advice would be not to really take these people too seriously and not to engage them and waste too much time on them. Two, if people did engage them, I would definitely advise that don't become kind of, see, because they want to show you as irascible. Rather. People say Mufti doesn't know the vocabulary. So they want to show you as somebody that gets reacts, he's irritable, he gets angry, he gets so don't react if you are going to engage. That's what I would say. So I think that actually didn't play, in my opinion, did not play out well at all for Muhammad Hijab and Ali Dawah. I think if people watch that, it actually played against them and seemed to favor this guy, which is a shame really, but yeah. And the other thing is, I saw that this Sam Shamoon or something, some post about I think Muhammad Hijab offered him to a legal fight. One-on-one, right? So I think it's going to be like a cage fight or something. And look, I get the sentiment that sometimes some people there's a saying in Urdu that where it highlights that laton ke bhoot baaton se nahi mante. That, sometimes there's some people, I get that, I do understand that. However, look, I would personally say that this is very childish. This kind of thing of like saying, oh, I'll fight you, like, what is this supposed to say? That, oh, like whoever wins, their religion is stronger? Is that what it's What are we like? Ooh, are we, is this how Neanderthals kind of like had intelligent arguments? You see, we are meant to pride ourselves on our intelligence. Like, I can outsmart. I can, like, you bring something, I can bring a cogent, potent, powerful argument and juxtapose it to what you're saying. This is what we do and ought to pride ourselves on. You see, if every time an Islamophobe says something, you say, okay, you know what, I'll fight you. And then, and I get if some people did it, but I don't think it generally suits people who are Muslim public figures who are trying to teach about Islam, like in that case with Muhammad Hijab. I don't know what's going to happen. The other guy accepted. The other guy's like, okay. And then I think he's backed out, though. I think so. I don't know. Because I was like, all right, I'll watch it then. But I just thought that, you know, this isn't the way. You know, we become like, see, this is how we become a laughing stock. That, oh, is this how Muslims deal with, you know, medievalists and, you know, just backward-minded kind of people. So we have to really raise the bar, people. Right, so guys, I think we should start wrapping things up. Right, so somebody's asked a question. Foz Muttabi has asked a question about the adopted male child. Does the wife need to wear hijab in front of him? I've answered. I've got a clip on this where you can watch that and do watch it for more detail. However, in there I do explain that, you see, in my understanding, in this day and age, the process of adoption itself would establish mahramiyah. So once you undertake, it's like, you see, when you marry someone, let's just say, I mean, this isn't marriage, but I'm giving an example. It's a kind of a verbal process, and there's going to be other things like maybe a certificate, a registration, a kind of, you know, somebody reading a sermon, and there's a process. When you divorce, there's a process. When you buy and sell, there's a process. And like when you're marrying, it renders the you know, it creates a kind of mahramiyah in that, in the sense that you're now halal by undergoing this process. And technically, nikah is simply just a verbal process. Do you accept? I accept. That's all it really is. Ijab wal qabul. Now, in this day and age, I've definitely given the fatwa, and I agree, and I support and push this concept that the process of adoption establishes mahramiyah. So you become a mahram once you are adopted. So that's fine. I mean, the woman does not need hijab, and she would be his actual mum. Right, so cool. I hope that makes sense, people. Right, with that, let's wrap this up, guys. It's been awesome. It's been emotional with this new setup. Anyway, it's been as I mentioned in the words of Mir, ke haale bad guftani nahi mera, tumne pucha to meherbani ki. Wow. So guys, with that, I'm going to leave you to it. Do remember to subscribe to my channels, YouTube and others, and like and share. Spread the love, or spread the fitan and fasad, whichever way you want, people, but spread it. If you have any issues, any questions, do reach out to me. I'm on Instagram as well. Same thing, Mufti Abu Layth, with all of them. Or if you're contacting me on Facebook, Messenger is usually good, or Instagram is usually good as well. Cool, guys, take very good care of yourselves. You've been awesome. May Allah keep you smiling. Stay blessed. Over and out, people. Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.